Christine Schmalor, thank you for this opportunity to talk about theater education, about research, about all these types of activities that you are hosting at AKT-ZENT, the World Theater Training Institute. And I guess the first question that is unavoidable in a conversation with you is, how did it all start? Take us back to that moment when the Institute started and when you had the first programs and when you established the team, which was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, more than 10 years ago.
Before I start answering your question, I want to thank you for this invitation and for the dialogue with you. I think not all the themes what you mentioned will be, let's concentrate on one of them. And now about us shortly. It came from a meeting between Dr. Juri Alschitz and myself in Berlin. And Juri Alschitz already had this dream in his mind to create a theater center, international theater center in Berlin, after he had left the Vasilyev School of Dramatic Art in Moscow just before. This was in 1995. And then we started strong collaborations with the GITIS, mainly on the further education, the continuous education for professionals. And step by step, it developed more and more to the research. It was always main part, but we concentrated more and more on the research of training methods, then on the research on how to train the trainers. And with the program World Theater Training Laboratory, we turned into the research center of the International Theater Institute worldwide. And then also accordingly, we changed the name into World Theater Training Institute. But in fact, we are existing since 1995. And of course, recently we turned mostly online. And we are working now with the Online Theater Academy and connecting this way nicely people and can work in this way worldwide.
It's interesting that you clarify the chronology, because my perception was determined by the fact that your association with the ITI in the form that you've described started more than 10 years ago, which is to say precisely 12 years ago. But it's very important that you've touched upon these issues that I think should be at the center of our conversation today. Research, teaching, and training. They reinforce and they nourish one another. So tell us a little bit about the specificity of this institute, which is based on a very interesting approach to all three of them, and on the idea that they can only function together, combined in an organic dynamics. So tell us about what the Institute is about in terms of fostering these three different aspects of the theatrical culture.
We started, in fact, with the idea of the triangle of research, teaching, and producing, and having that there is no difference, in fact, between the process of learning, the process of creating, by creating, researching, and this is the ongoing line. Of course, then we understood the producing, it's a little bit too much. We did some things. So right now, it's heavy now to separate it, because for me, for instance, as a teacher, the idea of the teacher is not to reproduce methods. It already starts from this idea that teaching is not just passing on knowledge from me to you. And this is already the core element of our newest research, to change the idea of teaching. So here you have already teaching, training, and researching in one word or in one program. That means that this somehow very old-fashioned idea of trading knowledge, I have and you don't have. So you come to me, pay me, and I give you something. And you go away and you're happy. And you're happy forever because you think knowledge will never change. This is, of course, very old-fashioned. And right now, we have the very different idea, so that we create programs where knowledge is created jointly. And there is not anymore the teacher who knows and the student who doesn't know. It's a process. It's a different process of generating knowledge together and enabling students to create knowledge what I do not have as teacher. And this is the interesting aspect.
The World Theatre Training Institute, AKT-ZENT, works under the artistic direction of Dr. Juri Alschitz as Research Center of the International Theatre Institute, with the aim of continuously developing training methods and finding new approaches to the training of actors and directors. Practical work plays a central role. It gives the teachers the opportunity to try out new approaches directly on the floor together with the artists. Teaching is understood as research. In this context, the education and further training of acting teachers is of particular importance. The profession of an acting teacher gains a significant boost as a central figure in the methodological development of the art of acting. Teaching itself is perceived as an art. The learning teachers are actively involved in the development of new methods and immediately become multipliers. All over the world, our students teach already the next generations. The international composition of all activities is of utmost importance. In this way, cultures meet and inspire each other in the process of creation. As a research center for training methods, the World Theatre Training Institute naturally strives to be open to all ideas and methods. But it is shaped by a clear artistic philosophy. On this basis, Juri Alschitz has built up a team of teachers over the years, which now operates internationally in this sense. What are the main research topics? Starting from the fundamental training as method, Juri Alschitz expanded the idea of exercise as a cornerstone of all creative work, indeed, as an artistic way of life. All research projects are based on this approach and pursue the idea of the homo creativus.
I'm very pleased that you've clarified the relationship between these three different aspects, which of course involve so many different connotations and implications, which are part of the process of research, training, and teaching. I would like to ask you, Christina, to tell us how you select the students, apart from this vibe that you've mentioned earlier on, that you feel from some of them that may lead you to believe that there will be something that you as teachers can learn from them. How do you select them? How wide is the area of selection? And what are the moments that you are most proud of throughout this rather long history of the Institute, which has generated, I think, interesting outcomes and has enabled people from different parts of the world to learn about theatre in a new way, in a provocative fashion that they maybe haven't contemplated before?
You're touching an interesting subject. And I think I would like to differentiate between this, yes, selection. If you are a school, it's necessary to select people because you have a very small place and thousands are standing in front of your house and you have to make a selection. It's very, very complicated process. And it takes one semester in our study program for teachers how to make selections. And it's a big question also to you as teacher. Can I be a good teacher for this person? very often, or in the conventional way, we are checking the students. But perhaps it's the process where we are checking ourselves. Who is the right student for me, or am I the right student for this one, the right teacher for this one? So this is one process. If we are speaking about, in general, the knowledge or the possibilities of auditioning in a different way. With our students in our class, what we did in Mexico, it was at UNAM, Centro Teatro. It got very, very different results in the following year when they did very different auditioning. They got very, very different type of students. What you asked was our students. And I think we are not a regular school. Everyone who thinks they are ready to learn and to change their system are welcome. Of course, sometimes when we had classes or opportunities to propose projects, sometimes, of course, we had to make selections, discussions with the people on the different levels. But in general, I think everyone is very welcome. Students should, because we are working with professionals, we are not working with beginners. And every professional should check, do I need it or don't I need it? Am I ready to change my system? Am I ready to change my inner system? Because we are demanding, and we are asking the people to change or to be open. And if you're a professional person, you're not just telling, okay, I come to your school and I'm learning and I'm giving myself in your hands. It's a conscious decision, and it's then a serious agreement between professional people. Do we want to exchange knowledge with each other? So especially now with online, of course, we have no selection procedure because people, they can come. This is the wonderful and the beautiful thing. And if they understand it's not theirs, very welcome. Go. It's not for everyone.
I think it's really fascinating that you combine a degree of openness, which is necessary, with a sense of clear and precise selection. And I think that should be the spirit governing any institute dedicated to theatrical research and teaching. And throughout this process that combines these two different aspects, these two different facets of the story, I want to ask you, when do you think that your mission begins to feel accomplished? When is it that you realize that somebody who maybe is reluctant at the beginning is embracing your method and is opening up? When can you really tell that this person who was so convinced of their own ways and methods and practices has all of a sudden discovered something new? Share with us some of those moments when you felt the satisfaction as a teacher that somebody has learned from you and you yourself have learned from them through this osmosis that you're describing earlier on.
Well, it's a little bit a heavy task because you ask me to when you think you have been a great teacher and the success to talk about the success. I'm quite a decent person. And of course, I'm very glad if people give their reflections. In fact, the most beautiful thing is when I see things on stage. I mean, when we are now not speaking about online, but when people showing things which I never ever experienced, if it's the flow. It's heavy to say, to have measurements of good and bad and success. I had students, or together with Juri Alschitz, we had students who looked not so much interested, perhaps. And years later, it worked, and it came back, and you saw results, and you saw coming back, saw them coming back or reflecting on it on very, very strong ways. I think I don't like so much this, you know, I do something, I see a result, and it's good or bad. It's very, very simple way of seeing things. It's, let's put it like this. Once someone asked me, what is the profession of the teacher? How can you give it a name or image for it? And I said, I see it as a gardener. And the gardener puts in the seeds and takes care and gives as much as possible freedom that this seed can grow and can blossom. And perhaps the gardener is not anymore there when the flower is blossoming. So it's time. It's time. And perhaps it's only coming next season. Perhaps it needs another winter of frost. This result-oriented thing, you know, and this award-winning stuff, I don't like it. I don't like it. Our institute, and I'm very grateful really to my teacher, Yuri Alschitz. It's more oriented towards a personal artistic vision. And there it is, my artistic result is, of course, students and other artists who go their way. And probably go their way in a very, very different way that I would go. But they go. And they go in a different and a very self-oriented way, self-empowered way. And this is somehow, for me, my result. If they get prizes or Oscars or awards, in fact, I don't care. I even would be very suspicious. Because I have to admit, I like to be outside of the system. And I like to see from the people the theater, which is not be applauded by the masses, but which is artistic and which is perhaps in front of the time.
I really, really feel touched by this metaphor of the gardener, which is so interesting, so poetic, and at the same time, so compelling to consider for somebody who understands the principles of education, as a lot of people have forgotten them. We live in an age in which the academia has been very much industrialized and governed by something that is called instrumental thinking. It's a means to an end. Somebody goes to a university in order to get a degree, in order to get a job, and so on and so forth. And I think you're absolutely right. Theater, training and teaching and research, they all need time in order to be able to blossom. And it's interesting that you are talking also about the fact that theater should necessarily be something that is artistic and is creative and mustn't look for the applause of the masses. But that's not elitism. That's simply understanding and acknowledging the specificity of this art form. And Christina, because I met both you and Yuri in Shanghai at a meeting organized by our common friend Tobias Biancone, and I was fascinated with your ideas, I'd like to ask you to share something with us and tell us how you faced this transition from the intimacy of this laboratory work at the Institute to the online patterns of ideas and communication. How have you managed to survive this tremendous challenge of online experiences?
Well, we have to see if we survived. We are still in the middle of it. No, well, it's a technical means. To be honest, it's not. I'm not enthusiast of online theater and all these things. I think theater is the live medium, and actors need be on stage, and so on and so on. Even that we have been long before the Corona crisis, we started with hybrid education, and people were laughing at us and saying, "What are you doing? You know, it should be alive." And we only said, "Well, we can communicate easily a lot of things during with computer. We can prepare and only then be very, very intensively together. This is simply a very practical thing, because our students, being actors, directors, or teachers, they are not students who dedicate 3 years to be constantly with us, like a normal acting school. They are professionals in their everyday life. So this online training, of course, opened a lot of chances, because it can be parallel to your everyday work. You can give courses once a week in the evening or in the morning during the day, and people can arrange with it. So this is practically a very good tool. It's practically also the tool that people don't have to travel. People from very remote areas, from every area of the world, can get access to knowledge if they want. They meet each other. For me, most important thing is that it supports even more the self-empowerment of actors and artists. They need to take much more responsibility, because they just get something from the computer, from the meeting, and they have to realize it themselves on stage. So it's not anymore this spoon-feeding teacher who says, please do, and you go on stage, you do something and come back with big eyes and asking, how was it? And then probably I might already say, well, what do you think how it was? Don't depend on me. But now it's even stronger, somehow, yes, I call it self-empowerment of people, because they only get something, get some food, and then they have to work with it themselves. It is limited, for sure. It is limited. But on these limitations, for certain purposes, it's very, very useful. So this is about this one, and perhaps because I know that our time is running and I just would like to touch one other theme, it is that, for instance, now we are starting with new programs, and of course using now more and more also subjects which are possible to teach online, and using, also trying to implement really new ideas in doing research with the people online, just on subjects like now very actually the quantum training. And there we have a new program which is called Quantum Training for Theater. And there we really move to the, let's say, to the future, because this is common research, and we are open that it's research together with the students on, let's say, the change of the mindset of human beings. And it's open question.
Christina, thank you so much for this very rich and exciting insight into the paradigm of your institute with its multifunctional and very dynamic programs. And I'm sure a lot of people who have been listening to us will be interested in following its programs, and I wish a lot of them would have that chance, because indeed it's a different approach to theater training, to theater teaching, to research, but above all to the understanding of how one relates to the substance of this art form. So thank you very much indeed, Christine Schmalor, and I hope we'll have the chance to talk again about theater before long. Thank you.
Thank you.